Hello, I'm Russell Poynton from Edison Group, and today I'm speaking to the management team from Shepherd Neame. With me, I have Jonathan Neame, who's the CEO, and Mark Ryder, who's the CFO. We're in the heart of the city at the recently refurbished and reopened Hoop and Grapes, which is a fabulous pub. Thank you for joining me, Mark and Jonathan.
Great to see you. Glad you're in one of our great new pubs.
So Jonathan, why don't you give an overview of the group and perhaps talk about the Hoop and Grapes, because I think it's a good example of what the group is doing.
Sure. So the group is 286 pubs. 220 are tenanted, 60 are managed. This is a managed site. We tend to manage the bigger sites or the hotels, the inns. Within our managed group, we've got a group of what we call city bars. We've got some food destination sites. We've got inns and hotels. This is a city bar. All of our pubs, whether they're tenanted or managed, we are looking for unique buildings, unique locations, and we are looking to invest in them to a very high standard to bring out all the individual characteristics of the site. This is 1721, surrounded by amazing new office blocks. It's a real little gem. It's got off to a flying start, and I think it really shows what the company can do when we invest well. We also have a brewery. We're unusual, we're vertically integrated, and that link between beer and pubs is kind of part of our DNA.
Okay. And look, everybody knows that there's some structural issues facing the industry in terms of declining beer consumption, and pubs are closing on a weekly basis. But over the long term, you've actually done very well in actually, for every pub, you're getting higher revenue and profit for each of those pubs. So you can just talk about the strategy that's driving that, please, and what you're doing to get those results.
Yeah. So actually, we're getting volume growth in London at the moment, interestingly. There is a volume decline in the overall sector. There are structural issues. Smaller pubs are really finding the inflationary environment very difficult to manage. Small pubs, which are complicated with a complex food offer and a high labour, are finding it most difficult. The real impact on the sector in the last few years has been the inflationary impact on energy and the inflationary impact on labour. That has impacted sites with a very high labour proportion, which tend to be the more food-led sites. Sites like this is much more wet-led, a conventional drinks-led pub, and therefore is more able to withstand those particular pressures. On top of that, the sector has faced what I like to call tax saturation. Whether it's business rates, excise duty, VAT, we are absolutely maxed out, more so than any other country in the world. Something will change. There has been some relief recently on business rates, which is very welcome, and a commitment from government to address that fundamentally for the long term. But most other countries in Europe see hospitality as a way of dealing with the employment crisis for young people and have cut VAT. And I would be reasonably hopeful that that's going to happen here in the medium term. So, but against that, people really need a third place to socialize. They absolutely, it's fundamental to the human condition that there is a great third place. And dwell time is going up in pubs, which is very interesting, particularly in pubs where there are unique features, unique characteristics, amazing buildings, beautiful views, great locations. And I think what's special about Shepherd Neame is that of our 285 pubs, at least 3/4 of them are either the dominant pub in their community, the go-to place for its community, or in a really special location where people are going to congregate at weekends or after work or whatever. And we built that estate bit by bit over many, many years. So we've got an exceptional portfolio of authentic, genuine, quite often historic pubs that we mainly own freehold, that will bring people together when they want to socialise.
And you've already mentioned that you're vertically integrated by owning the brewery. Now, it's interesting that a lot of your peers, that they've disposed of their breweries over recent years. So what is the competitive advantage that owning the brewery still gives to you?
So The product range itself is a footfall driver. That's probably more the case in rural and community areas where people really associate with their local brewer. We are Britain's oldest brewer, so there is sort of an embedded loyalty to us in that respect. The value creation of brewing your own beer and then retailing it at high price points in your own pubs is significant, notwithstanding the excise duty. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to brew our own beer and sell it in our own pubs and have a point of difference. That's the heart of it. Now, on top of that, we have a production facility where we try and defray the costs by selling to other customers in the supermarkets and into our heartland. And some of that has been very challenging recently, but it doesn't mean that the core of what we do, the DNA of the business, the differentiator in our product range, or the core purpose of that vertically integrated model is still very valid in my view.
And earlier you referred to the rampant cost inflation you've had over the last year. So it's been a very challenging few years generally. With you had COVID, and now you've had this cost inflation, but your revenues have recovered to pre-COVID levels, whilst the profits haven't. So do you think that the profitability of the company is structurally lower now than it was before COVID, and perhaps how could that improve going forward?
Margins across the whole sector have been impacted. There's no question about that. And a key driver for that really is the cost of labour, which has increased in the last 10 years through national minimum wage and through national insurance most recently by something like 60%. Which has a big impact at the outlet level, but also in things like logistics, supply chain, and of course elsewhere in the company. And everybody in the sector is suffering from the same thing. If we can get to a stable cost environment, then our whole focus is to drive margins and to drive margin improvement. In the short term, we've made some efficiencies. We've obviously had to use price. And everybody will be aware that the price of a meal and the price of going out has gone up. But if we can get to a stable environment, there will be other ways that we can find to drive margin improvement and to recover that lost ground in the last 5 years.
And the great thing about Shepherd Neame is there's quite a high net asset value with this freehold backing, and which has typically gone up over the long term. But your share price stands at quite a large discount to that net asset value. Are there ways that you can think of unlocking that value?
So we've just announced our capital allocation strategy and try to clarify that the principal ways we can drive earnings is investing in high returning opportunities. And what the business does have is a lot of opportunities. So expansionary capital, we're targeting more than 15%, and that is probably the best use of capital for us. We will periodically consider share buybacks as well, which is earnings enhancing. And over the medium term, we expect our cash flow to grow, our leverage to come down, and our debt levels, and therefore the cost of debt to reduce. We've recently refinanced, and that is on improved terms. So the cumulative impact of all of that should be a trajectory to drive earnings over the medium term.
Switching to Mark, now the company, has got great freehold backing, but also operates with quite a high level of debt. Would you just talk a little about the level of debt you're comfortable with, please?
Yes, Russell, yeah. And so we have historically always had a sort of target of our non-lease leverage at or around 3 times over medium term. We went through the COVID period, and actually our debt went up as we were closed. And we were one of the only businesses in the sector that didn't raise equity to help offset the impact of that net debt increase. We really sort of fought hard to keep our debt as minimized as possible through cutting back investing in the business through that period. So coming out of the COVID episode, we have got to a point where we've allowed debt and leverage to go up a bit as we've recovered and reinvested back into the business. Jonathan's talked a little bit about the capital allocation exercise, and the business is cash generative. And where we don't invest that free cash flow into either share buybacks or capital in the business, we will see net debt come down. And the business is still committed to a leverage level of about 3 times ex leases over the medium term, and that's our target. Worth just noting, most of our lease debt actually is central London sites such as the Hoop and Grapes, some of our prime city bar pubs that we have. So we're not targeting extra lease debt, and that is in place that supports these very good London pubs. But we're looking for net debt ex leverage ex leases to be at or around 3 times over that medium term again.
Okay, thanks. And today you've just released your interim results for financial year 2026. What do you think are the key highlights in those results?
So on most metrics, we are level with the prior period. Some measures up a little bit, some down a fraction. But fundamentally, our cash flow is up 0.8%, which is actually very robust after having absorbed all the additional costs of labour, in particular the national insurance and national minimum wage that came in October 24. On top of that, we've absorbed an incremental logistics costs, which has been coming for some time off the back of a new agreement. If you strip that out, the actual underlying business is up 10% in this period. And that really shows that I think that we're investing well, that even for some of the challenges that we've got in the beer business, there is still good momentum in gross margins, etc. So that's the overall position.
Great, thank you. Well, Mark and Jonathan, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.